There's something about jagged edges and shaky textures that just hits different. Nowadays, every big-budget game is chasing photorealism, but along the way, a lot of them lose that raw, gritty atmosphere that made the early days of 3D gaming so iconic. Those blocky visuals used to force your imagination to fill in the blanks, making the shadows feel darker and the worlds feel way more mysterious. That specific retro look is having a massive comeback right now, and the indie scene is using it to create some of the most atmospheric experiences I've seen in years. Welcome back to Magic Game World. Today we're looking at 10 upcoming games that prove this style is far from dead. Starting things off with a heavy hitter, we have BECROWNED. This is a surreal survival horror title that feels like a total fever dream. You're playing as Richard Torrance, a guy who spent his life being cold and rational to get ahead, but he's never actually found true happiness. That unfulfilled desire eventually manifests as his greatest torment, dragging him into a nightmare world woven from the fears of a distant past. It's got that heavy, psychological dread where every corner of a decrepit hospital or a strangely empty motel feels like it's watching you. This isn't just a straight path either. You're making choices that carry real weight, like whether to save a random killer or leave a martyr to their fate. If you've been chasing that specific classic survival horror high for years, BECROWNED looks like it's going to deliver. If your childhood was spent hiding in the shadows of a castle in games like Thief, then Project Shadowglass is going to be right up your alley. This is a stealth-focused, immersive sim set in a dark fantasy kingdom. It uses some incredible 3D pixel art tech to create a world that feels incredibly oppressive. You play as a struggling thief, and you are definitely not a hero. You're alone, you're outmatched, and if you get caught, things go south fast. You might end up in a jail cell where you'll have to manually plan your escape. The coolest part is that your reputation actually follows you. If you go on a killing spree, the citizens will literally run away when they see you. It's all about the planning, the tools, and the thrill of the heist in a world that feels genuinely lived in despite its retro look. Now, if you want something a bit more vibrant, DoubleShake is a total blast from the past. It's an action platformer heavily inspired by those weird, bouncy classics like Mischief Makers or Tomba. You play as Loam, and the gameplay is built entirely around grabbing, shaking, and throwing stuff to save your islands from total disorder. It's got that high-energy soul from the late 90s, where the world is built in 3D, but the action is focused and fast. The developers are using modern design to make the movement feel way tighter than the games we actually played back in the day, but the look is pure nostalgia. It's bright, it's fast, and it's a perfect reminder that platformers don't need to be hyper-realistic to be a total blast. Next up is a game that basically became an urban legend in the community, Compound Fracture. For years, people thought this project was dead because the devs went totally quiet, but they're back, and it looks like the Dinosaur horror successor we've been begging for. It's 1996, and you're a safety enforcer investigating a company that's been messing with time travel. Now you're stuck in a concrete facility with Utahraptors and compies. The survival elements are no joke. If you break a leg, you aren't outrunning anything. You have to scavenge for supplies and decide if a fight is even worth the ammo. It nails that raw, chunky look, right down to the polygon jitter and texture warping that defined that specific era of gaming. Switching gears to the RPG world, we have Entropy. This is a tactical, turn-based RPG inspired by classic JRPGs, but with a much grimmer post-apocalyptic tone. In this world, humanity isn't dying from some big explosion, but from a slow, cold infertility and demonic incursions. The story actually starts in a really unique way. You're part of a theater troupe, and your performance is interrupted by a demon attack at the gates. You literally have to grab your wooden stage sword and fight for your life. From there, you'll hire mercenaries to fill out your party and explore a massive world map filled with tyrants and monsters. It's a beautiful mix of that end-of-the-world atmosphere and deep tactical combat. If you're looking for a game that pushes the limits of retro-style tech, you have to see Holstin. This is a psychological survival horror set in a small, isolated Polish town in 1992 that's being consumed by some kind of foul presence. The custom tech here is wild. It's a hand-drawn pixel art world that you can rotate to 8 different angles, and it seamlessly shifts into a modern over-the-shoulder aiming mode when you need to start shooting. You'll be talking to locals who are slowly losing their minds, navigating their delusions just to find your missing friend. The atmosphere is incredibly thick and genuinely unsettling, perfectly capturing that eerie, lo-fi 90s vibe. Valkyrie Saga is actually a game you can jump into right now, as it just released in early 2026. This is a retro platformer that feels like a long-lost gem from the original PlayStation era. You play as a divine warrior named Roll, and your only job is to stop a floating island from crashing into the earth. It captures the visuals and that specific kind of immersive soundtrack that defined a generation. It's a classic odyssey where you master the spear and learn to soar through the sky to uncover the secrets of a fallen civilization. It's a fantastic example of a new retro game that understands exactly why we loved those old-school adventures. Slated for later in 2026 is Comatose, a survival horror FPS that takes place entirely inside the decaying mind of the protagonist, Laura. You're trapped in a loop, navigating a deserted town that represents her unconscious mind. The environment actually gets more corrupted and terrifying as you unearth more of her buried trauma. You'll be managing tiny amounts of ammo and solving puzzles that require you to piece together her memories just to survive the next loop. It's a psychological nightmare in the truest sense, and those blocky graphics make the monsters feel way more disturbing than they would in high def. It's proof that sometimes what you can't quite see clearly is scarier than anything else. If you want a project with a massive, sprawling scale, check out Decay. This is a dark, dystopian RPG set in a newly discovered star system. You can be anyone, from a humble engineer to a syndicate leader in a neon-soaked city deep underground. You can build your own spaceships with complex power grids, pilot giant mechs called MCVs with fully interactive cockpits, and fight for territory. It's an ambitious blend of a player-driven economy, hardcore survival, and large-scale destruction. It feels like the kind of dream game we used to imagine when we were kids looking at those old sci-fi box covers, mixing that retro look with massive modern systems. Finally, we have DERELIKT. If you're a fan of Alien Resurrection or System Shock 2, this is going to be your new obsession. It's a narrative retro FPS set on a space station orbiting Saturn that's been grafted onto a mysterious asteroid. You're dealing with Lovecraftian horrors, a robust dialogue system with over a dozen NPCs, and old-school puzzles that wouldn't feel out of place in Resident Evil. The developers have worked hard to create what is arguably the most faithful recreation of that 90s style on the market, from the texture warping to the full-motion CGI cutscenes. It's pure, unadulterated sci-fi horror that feels like it was unearthed from a time capsule. The low-poly revolution is honestly one of the best things to happen to the industry lately. It proves you don't need a massive budget and photorealistic faces to create an incredible atmosphere. Which of these are you wishlisting first? Let me know in the comments. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to Magic Game World for more indie gems. I'll see you in the next one.